somebody over there with me.
Yeah. Or with myself. I'm a appointed warrior for myself for guardianship. All right, we are doing Tamar. I always called it Tamar, but the proper Jewish pronunciation is on the last syllable, Tamar. And so Tamar and Judah. And it's really interesting. We're going to do some backstory about Judah. That Judah got the ancestor of Jesus. And there's a point to that in Genesis 49 and how that happened, even after all this wickedness that happened in chapter 38. So, 39. 38. We start in 37. Okay, in chapter 37, this is when it's the story of Joseph. It starts out in 37. Then there's this pause of Judah in 38. And in 38, if you noticed, I didn't notice until somebody pointed it out when I was doing studying, there's no mention of God and there's no mention of Jacob. He should have talked to Jacob about marrying this Canaanite woman, which he should have never done.
They're not supposed to do.
No, they're not. So, but there's no talk of Jacob. There's not one word about Jacob, and there's not one word of God. Of course, Jacob wasn't the most outstanding influence, too. This all started because of his favoritism towards Joseph. So, but in Genesis chapter 37, and verse 12, the boys had all gone out to take care of the flocks, and obviously Joseph and Benjamin were still home. And so Jacob says, I want you to go out and check on the boys. And where they'd gone, in verse 12, and his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. What's Shechem that we've known about? Dinah, the Shechemites. So obviously, well, you don't know, maybe it was still abandoned, but that's where they went. And then Joseph goes and the brothers see him coming. And verse 22, and Reuben said unto them, because they're saying, let's kill him and say an evil beast got him. And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might and he said it because he might rid him out of their hands to deliver him to his father again. So Reuben was not going along with this. He was trying to say, throw him in. When you guys are all gone, I'll go back and get him out and take him to Jacob to protect him. Reuben gets no accolades for this. Mm-hmm. I mean, you never hear, okay, but part of it was he was the oldest brother, so he should have insisted and made them listen to him. But at this point, I don't know if this is after the time that he slept with Jacob's wife, the servant wife Bilhah, and that kicked him out of the line of succession. But he should have just said, I'm the oldest, we're not doing this, and he's going back home to dad. But that didn't happen. So 23, and it came to pass when Joseph was coming to his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit. And the pit was empty, there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread. Nice, they threw a bud in the pit. Now we're just going to have lunch. And they lifted up their eyes and looked. And behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. When Judah said to his brethren, what profit is this if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hands be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. Oh great, he's our brother, so let's sell him instead of kill him. And interesting, Ishmaelites, there are the descendants of Isaac. So they're these boys' cousins, Isaac and Jacob. These guys are their cousins, so they're selling their brother to their cousins. And so then they're passed by the Midianites, and they got Joseph, and the boys go, and Reuben returned into the pit, because he must have gone off from when this all went on. And notice too, they sold Joseph for 20 pieces of silver.
Nothing.
But it's just like Jesus, betrayed carried by Judas. 20 pieces of silver are pretty predominant in the Bible.
It was
And Reuben,
30 for Jesus.
huh?
I thought it was 30 pieces for Jesus.
Oh, it's 30? Oh, sorry, 30. Okay, good, thank you.
Still pieces of silver.
Right. And Reuben returned into the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he tore his clothes. So Reuben must have gone off and came back, and still he had good intentions, and he's very upset because he tore his clothes. And he returned into his brethren and said, the child is not, and I, where shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat and killed a kid of the goats and dipped the coat in the blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, this have we found. Know now whether it be thy son's coat or not. That's important because later on, Judas is told asked the same thing from Tamar. So how the Bible repeats itself and how it kind of shows you what's going on. So they said, is this your son's coat? You know, because and he recognized it and said, it is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt torn in pieces. And Jacob tore his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him. Remember we talked about that before because they kept saying Dinah was the only daughter, but this says daughters. So he must have had more than Dinah. But he refused to be comforted, and he said, for I will go down into Sheol until my son mourning. Thus the father wept for him. Now, Jacob is wrong here. He's showing such favoritism for Joseph, and that's why the brothers are so hateful towards him and angry. I mean, come on. They're older than Joseph, and think about poor Leah, who had all these boys and was always so put down by Jacob, and always Rachel, Rachel, Rachel. So, all right, so now we start in, there's 37 is about Joseph going down to Egypt. 39 picks up the story about Joseph. And why is 38 in here? And we'll talk about that later, but it's a pause. And it's the same thing in Genesis 16, where it's the story of Moses. And then there's a pause and tells the story of Lot going down to Sodom and Gomorrah, and then goes back to Moses, the story of Moses. So this is another thing that Moses does in the 5 chapters that he wrote. Pauses, but it's important to the total story of what happened. Lot's story is important to the story of Moses, and this is important to the story of Tamar, and Joseph. And it came to pass at that time. Important. Time is always important in the Bible to refer back. What does that mean? At that time, they're talking about the same time that Joseph was thrown into the pit. This is right after this happened. And Judah went down from his brethren and turned into a certain Adulamite whose name was Hiram. Okay, why did Judas left his family, his religion, he left everything, and there was speculation. Why did he do that? Well, did he feel he couldn't probably, maybe guilt over the fact of what he'd done to Joseph, or he couldn't stand seeing the sorrow of his father, or he just was tired of all this, the favoritism, seeing the sorrow of his father over his favorite son. So he left, and it says he went down from his brethren. He went down physically, but he also went down spiritually. He's left the God, the true God, and now he's among the Canaanites. And he got a big BFF was Hira. And every time you see Hira in this chapter, it's bad news for Joseph. Okay, and the question also comes up, why did God allow Joseph to be sold into Egypt and all this to happen? And what the commentators say is it was seriously for a reason, because the Canaanites were becoming too friendly with the Israelites. God told, you're my covenant people, you are to stay apart, you're not supposed to marry any Canaanites, you're supposed to be within your own tribe, you're Israelites, and a perfect thing is Judah's it's not happening. Judah's going down, and it was the whole crowd would have eventually done it. So God had to send them to Egypt. I mean, it was a bad way to go, poor Joseph, but Joseph rose above it all. And because in Egypt, Egyptians thought they were better than the Israelites, and they despised this, the Egyptians despised the Hebrews because they were shepherds and they thought they were a lower class. Turn to Genesis 43. Close. 43:32 tells about how the Egyptians felt about the Hebrews. 43:32. And they set on him, and this is the servants, the Egyptian servants, and they set on for him by himself, this is Joseph, and for them by themselves, and for the Egyptians who did eat with them by themselves, because the Egyptians might not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination unto the Egyptians. Even Joseph, who was second command, was seen as an abomination to the servant Egyptians. That's how much they thought of the Israelites. And then 46:34. This is when the brothers have all come down, and Joseph's and after Joseph has told him that he's his brother, blah blah blah. So Joseph's saying, you know, they have to find somewhere to rest. And Joseph says that, and this is to Pharaoh, that ye shall say, thy servant's trade hath been about cattle from our youth until now. Now, this is what he's saying his brothers should tell Pharaoh. Now, both we and also our fathers, that ye may dwell in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is an abomination unto the Egyptians. So God knew the Egyptians weren't going to marry with these people because they thought they were an abomination. So, all right, chapter 39. It's interesting, this chapter takes a time span of 20 to 25 years. And doesn't, you know, it just talks and you think, you read it and go on. Well, think about it. Judah marries, he has 3 sons, 2 sons marry, he goes through the whole thing with Tamar. So 20 to 25 years. And you see, like I said, when you ever see Hiram, his best friend, pagan, and bad things are going to happen. And in 1 Corinthians, this is one of the lessons of this. 1 Corinthians 15:33. You don't have to turn to that. Bad company corrupts good character. Stay away from the bad people. Now, I'm going to the bar because I'm going to witness to them. That's a common thing. No. Bad company corrupts good character. It's very sad that the good character can't overcome bad company, but that's not usually what happens. All right. Number 38, number 2. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. Now, this is interesting because some of the commentators and some of the sermons say the wife's name was Shua. But I think the correct thing is the father's name is Shua. The way this is written, you could take it either way. A certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. And he took her and went in unto her. And nobody tells us if it's not Shua, which I don't think it is. I think Dad's name is Shua. That what the wife's name is, but the Jewish commentators say her name was Aliyah. So whether that's true or not, how do they know? But that's what the commentators say. And okay, marrying a Canaanite, that was just no. If you go to Genesis 24:3, view back to your right, 24:3. All right. This is talking about Abraham, who's old, and he needs a son for Isaac. 3. And he's talking to the servant Eleazar, who's going to find a wife for Isaac. And I will make thee swear by the Lord, the God of heaven, and the God of the earth, that thou shalt not take a wife unto my son of the daughters of the Canaanites, and among whom I dwell. don't let Isaac marry a Canaanite, because he knew what was going to happen. And then on to 28:1. We're now into Isaac and Jacob. And Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said unto him, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. This was a total no-no. This was serious business, and Judah just ignored it all and moved on, because apparently Aaliyah was a cutie pie, and you know. Okay, and watch this closely. And she conceived and bore a son, and he, which would be Judah, called his name What a name, but whatever. And she conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. Usually the fathers, males, were supposed to name the kids, but we see here the presumably increasing influence of this pagan wife. He named she named Onan, and she yet again conceived and bore a son, and called his name Shelah, and he was at Shezib when she bore him. I don't know what that's about, but again, she named Shelah. So more and more this wife is presumably having, and the pagan ways are presumably having influence on this family. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. Okay, there's also difference of opinion if Tamar was a Canaanite or an Israelite. Some of the Jewish commentaries say she was an Israelite, but I think she was Canaanite, because they were so into the Canaanite thing at this point, and because the wife had so much influence, probably would. And a true Israelite, even a woman, would not have wanted to get into this Canaanite family, but who knows. But the other thing is, you know, a lot of the commentators are saying Tamar was bad dad for what she ultimately did. But other commentators said she had to be a good woman, because names meant so much to people at this time, especially the Hebrews, the Israelites, and David named his daughter Tamar, the one we're going to talk about in 2 weeks. And Absalom named his daughter Tamar, either because of his sister or because, you know, it was just a good name. And if she hadn't been a good person, the presumption is that David and son would have never named their daughters that. So, and in the end, she's the one that's a good influence. In spite of what she does, she's a good influence on Judah. Because at this point, Judah is pretty shaky. And who would think at this point, if you read this, you're going to be the ancestor of Jesus? Hello. So, and Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. All right, we never find out what he was so wicked about. That's all it says. Which he had to be very wicked, because this is also the first instance where God just zapped somebody, and you don't really know why. And it's interesting too, because the word here, wicked, is the same wicked that's used describing Haman in Esther 7:6. Did I? I thought I wrote this down. Hold on. Oh yeah, Esther 7:6. And Esther said about Haman, he is the adversary and enemy, is this wicked Haman. And that word, Hebrew word wicked, used to describe Haman, also used to describe So who knows what he did, but it was bad. It was really bad. If you want to think in your mind, whatever it is, it was bad. Okay, and so Judah, and we don't hear anything, okay, Judah's sad or something. We presume he's sad, but we don't hear that he just moves on. And Judah said unto Onan, his second son, Go into thy brother's wife and marry her, and raise up seed to thy brother. And Onan knew that the seed should not be his, and it came to pass when he went into his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, lest he should give seed to his brother. So, kind of like today's world, we want the pleasure of what's going on without the responsibility. And it was also because of his greed, because if he had a child with Tamar, that would now become, it was Er's son, and so he would be the firstborn, and he would get the double portion, which would give Onan only 1/4, because it's Er's son, who would be Tamar's kid here, which was biologically Onan's kid, but it was considered because of the Levirate law, which we'll talk about in a minute, that he would get two portions, which would make Onan only get 1/4. Well, if there's only Onan and Shelah, Onan's firstborn, and he gets 2/3, and Shelah gets 1/3. So he didn't have any incentive to have kids. And obviously, this was a wicked, wicked family that didn't really care about anybody but themselves. So, the Levirate, this is called Levirate marriage, that where you, if you're the firstborn's wife, the firstborn son dies without, and the wife doesn't have any children, then the next oldest brother marries her. And not if he's already married. It keeps going down if the second is already married. And they do that for 2 reasons. To keep the inheritance in the eldest dead son's name, and so his name remains. And for second, to protect the childless widow. Because if you were a widow in those times, you're out of luck. Widows, no matter, if your husband had land and he died, widows couldn't inherit the land. That went to the next brother. So, and nobody seemed to want to take care of her. You know, you were just out in the wind. So, I mean, I'm sure if the fathers were still alive, they'd take them in like Tamar's father does. But you were in very bad circumstances. This is the lowest. The orphans and widows, as when Jesus is all in the Bible talking about caring for them, they had no protection. So that was the reason for this Levirate marriage. And it was widely practiced in the Near East at this time, but the Hebrews, Israelites started doing it. And it was so important that it became part of the law of Moses. So turn to Deuteronomy 25, 5 to 10.
What's the reference again, Deuteronomy?
Deuteronomy 25, 5 to 10. And we talked about this once before too. You'll remember when we get to the end. All right, Deuteronomy 25, 5. If a brethren dwell together and one of them die and have no child, the wife of the dead shall not marry outside the family unto a stranger. Her husband's brother should go into her and take her to him as his wife, and perform the duty of a husband's brother unto her. And it shall be that the firstborn whom she beareth shall succeed in the name of his brother who is dead, that his name be not put out of Israel. And if the man desire not to take his brother's life, then let his brother's wife go up to the gate and to the elders and say, my husband's brother refuses to raise up unto his brother a name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of my husband's brother. Then the elders of the city shall call him and speak unto him. And if he stand to it and say, I desire not to take her, then shall his brother's wife come unto him in the presence of the elders, and loose his shoe from off his foot, and spit in his face, and shall answer and say, so shall it be done unto the man who will not build up his brother's house. And his name shall be called in Israel, the house of him who hath his shoe loose. So this is serious business. And to be humiliated like that in front of all the elders in the village was really bad. So, but I guess if you didn't want to marry your brother's wife or sister-in-law, I'm sure there's some.
Seems like a small price to pay.
Right. Get spit and take your shoe off. And also, it didn't matter for women if you had girls to take care of you in the end, unless you're because the girls became part of their husband's family, and they couldn't say, well, let's take care of her. My mom, she has nobody. I mean, their husbands could agree, but it wasn't an automatic thing. So that's why it was so important for this Levirate. All right, now turn to Leviticus. It's more rules about the Levirate marriage. Leviticus 18. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus. All right, Leviticus 18:15, and this is saying father-in-laws could not perform the Levirate thing. 18:15, thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy daughter-in-law. She is thy son's wife. They shall not uncover her nakedness. That means have sex with her. And then Leviticus 20:12. And if a man lie with his daughter-in-law, both of them shall surely be put to death. They have wrought confusion, their blood shall be upon them. So it was a death penalty if you did this. And then 21:9, Leviticus 21:9. This is important towards, as we go on in the story. Leviticus 21:9. And the daughter of any priest, if she profane herself by playing the harlot, she profaneth her father, she shall be burned with fire. But that's only if you're the daughter of a priest. And some of the commentators said Judah could have taken up the Levirate law and impregnated Tamar, but most of the places where I found it was a no-no, especially here. But the heathen cultures, it was okay for them to do it. The father-in-law could become the Levirate person for him. And also, interestingly, this back to 38, where it talks about and what Onan did, and the thing which he did displeased the Lord, wherefore he slew him also. So number 2 is gone. And the Catholics use this to show that God does not approve of birth control. That's not what it's saying. It's not about birth control. It's about what he was disobeying his father. He was humbling and being bad to Tamar, and it was all about grief, that he didn't want to give up his inheritance. All right, so then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow at thy father's house till Shelah my son be grown. For he said, lest perhaps he die also, as his brethren did. And Tamar went out and dwelt in her father's house. All right, so he's saying, go to your father's house. Remain a widow, go to your father's house, and when my younger son Shelah becomes of age, because he was obviously too young at that point, must have been like 8, 9, 10, I'll send him to you, I'll give him to you. He had no intentions of doing that, because he thought somehow it was Tamar's fault about the first 2 sons dying. And it's interesting, they obviously were doing evil. And maybe Onan not in the father's face, but had to have been doing evil in his father had to know.
If it's the same use of the word wicked that is used in Esther for Haman wanted to get rid of the Jews. Maybe was a particularly activist Canaanite in destroying the...
Right. And God's not playing that. That's his chosen people. So, and he may have resented the fact his father was Jewish. Who knows? You can speculate, but yeah, that's a good presumption. So he sent, and the thing was, he could have released Tamar. He could have said, okay, you're a widow now. You can go to your father's house, and I'm releasing you, and you can remarry. But she wasn't under her own father's authority anymore. She was under Judah's authority, and you'll see later when he does what he does. So she had to go with what he said. And at this point, she's probably only 16 or 17 years old, and has to put on widow's garb at 16 and 17. And she really thinks at this point, she's going to get the youngest son. But Judah doesn't. So it's more of his self-centeredness and wickedness. You don't intend to give your son to him. Why would you let her be free? I don't think it was out of goodwill to think maybe her next husband's going to get it too. I think he just wanted to control. Just to control. She was once my son's wife, so I'm going to control her, because he could have. And that was wicked too, because she's just in limbo, especially when he has no intention of giving up Shelah, and she thinks he does. All right, and she went and dwelt in her father's house. I'm always wondering.
What verse are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. 11.
Okay, next.
And I was wondering what father and mother and that family's thinking about all this. you know, you never hear anything, and later on, when she gets pregnant, what are they thinking about, you know? She went out for half a day, she comes back, and 3 months later, who knows? You know, who knows? Maybe she was the real favorite and they liked her back under any circumstances. It's hard to know. All right. And in the process of time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, see there, it says daughter of Shua. Her name isn't Shua. And I don't know. It's amazing to me how these commentators don't pick up on stuff like that. You know, they say things and you go, read the Bible, baby. All right. That the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died. And Judah was comforted and went up into his sheep shears to Timnah. What do you know about Timnah? Judges. Samson went up in Timnah and got his Philistine wife. Bad, 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 bad. These places are bad. All right. So went to Timnah. He and his friend Hira, the Dulamite. Bad news again. So, okay, the mourning period was 30 days. So presumably he mourned for his wife for the 30 days, and then it's party time because sheep shearing was a big party. It was like New Orleans, you know, Mardi Gras, big party because there was a time where you're going to get your money because you're shearing the sheep and everything, and it was drinking and this is in Canaanite territory and all kinds of stuff going on, like New Orleans. So it was a big time. And if Judah was really so mourning his wife, had he really done this? But that's judging, who knows? But also, some of the Jewish literature says that he decided to give, at this point, right before the wife dies, that Judah had decided to give Shelah to Tamar. And the wife absolutely refused. You're not doing that. So they didn't. And then thereafter she died. That's Jewish literature. It's not in the Bible, so who knows, but that's what they say. So sheep shearing was oftentimes of sexual temptation due to the Canaanite cult that encouraged ritual fornication to Astarte, goddess of love and fertility. Ritual fornication was fertility magic for crops and animals. So party time, we can go have fornication with temple prostitutes and everything. It wasn't hard to get male converts to this religion, you know. So, all right, Tamar, and it was told Tamar, saying, "Behold, thy father-in-law goeth up to Timnah to shear his sheep." There must have been a gossip going on, because when he finds about her being pregnant, she finds out that he's going up for sheep shearing, and she must have known the character of her father-in-law, because then, and she put her widow's garments off from her, covered her with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place, which is by the way to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given unto him as his wife. So at this point, Tamar realizes Shelah is not coming her way. And so some of the favorable commentators towards her say that she was doing this not only for her protection to get a child, but also that to keep the Er's name in the family inheritance. So who knows? And some say it was because she was so angry and it was for vengeance against Judah. I don't know. Who knows? But in the end, I think it says somewhere in the Bible that it was because she wasn't given Shelah. It wasn't about being vengeful for Judah. Well, maybe that was vengeance for not getting Shelah, but that's the reason she did it. And also, one of the commentators said she was a smart little chickie. Now she's 17 or 18 and she's made this plan and how she's going to do it and everything. And she must have gone, they said, to a place that she knew that there weren't many other women around, prostitutes, because if she was going to entice Judah, she had to be, pretty much the only one. But who knows? And some of them say she was like a common harlot, but one of the words they use to describe her describes a temple prostitute. So she may have been trying to look like a temple prostitute, I don't know. All right, when Judah saw her, he thought her to be a harlot. And I think this means, this is the word harlot, but it means temple prostitute, because she had covered her face. I guess that means don't cover your face, ladies. And he turned unto her by the way and said, Come, I pray thee, let me come in unto thee, for he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, What wilt thou give me that thou mayest come unto me? And he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock. Now I should get a goat. And she said, Wilt thou give me a pledge till thou send it? And he said, What pledge shall I give thee? And she said, Thy signet, and thy bracelets, and thy staff that is in thine hand. And he gave them to her, and came in unto her, and she conceived by him. All right, what I found interesting, how did he not recognize her voice? I mean, come on, how long had she lived with him? And I mean, I understand maybe the veil over the face and stuff, and who knows, and bodies are bodies. But the voice, unless she disguised it, but they didn't say that. So that, I found that interesting. But the Bible said he didn't know, so he didn't know. And the signet was either, the signet that she wanted and that he gave her was either like a signet ring, like you see in English, that kings would put it on the wax, or they used to have, the Israelite had a cylinder that they had around the neck, and they would roll in the clay or the wax. And the bracelets were either real bracelets, or she was referring to the cords that held the signet, whatever it was, the cylinder or whatever. And the staff, that was who you were. He was the head of this family. And so it had markings on it to show exactly, it was like giving her his license and credit card. This was very distinctive. And he obviously didn't care. He was so into doing what he was gonna do that whatever you want, it's yours. So,
He didn't think it was gonna come back to bite him.
yeah, right.
And don't you think he'd be drinking at a?
Oh yeah, that was another thing they say, yeah.
That
Right.
they were intoxicated.
Right. It was all the party atmosphere and the drinking and everything. Woohoo!
And I think, part of her is obviously uncovered, but she's still veiled, so he hasn't seen her face.
Right. Because apparently that's what happened to Jacob with Leah. Leah stayed veiled the whole first night, so that's how he didn't know it wasn't Rachel.
Yeah.
And they must have had similar body configurations, or he should have known that, but who knows? All right, this is where I saw commentaries where some of the Jewish texts say Tamar was an Israelite, but most say she was a Canaanite. And some of the Jewish texts say that she was boastful and unashamed during her pregnancy. So who knows? And that's
just like today.
right, just like today. It's just like today. I want the fun of sex without the responsibility of a child. Who knows? And some of the Jewish texts, this is not the Bible. Some of the Jewish texts say that she married Judah in the end and had further relations, but the Bible said he knew her no more after that, and we believe the Bible. And some of the Jewish texts said that she was a Canaanite, but she was a believer, and that she was the daughter of Melchizedek, because he was the only Canaanite priest who worshipped the one true God. And I don't even know if these are all in the same time frame. Melchizedek, but that's that. And some say the Jewish text say she was the daughter of Shem, who was the high priest, and that's why she could be burned. Because that was in Mosaic law, that if you were the high priest and fornicated or adulterous, you could be burned. Okay, so anyway, he gives it all this stuff, drunken fun, and she arose and went away and laid by her veil from her and put on once again the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend the Adulamite to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. Isn't that interesting? He's so righteous about giving up the thing. Not about Tamar, but okay, I'll give for the prostitute, I'll give up that goat. Then this is Hira. This Judah didn't go. He didn't go back. He sent Hira and probably paid him. Then Hira asked the men of that place, verse 21, where is the harlot that was openly by the wayside? And they said, there was no harlot in this place. And these are the words, too, that referred for sure to temple prostitute. And he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. And also the men of this place said that there was no harlot in this place. And Judah said, let her take them to her, lest we be shamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and thou hast not found her. Okay, I did my deal. I did what I said I'd do. She wasn't there. Too bad, how sad. And one of the things said that the signet ring or signet, whatever it was more valuable than a goat, a kid goat. So they probably thought, but it's interesting too at this point why Judah didn't think something was up. This wasn't a temple prostitute. What's going on here? But have fun, move on. And it came to pass about 3 months later that it was told Judah, saying, Tamar, thy daughter-in-law hath played the harlot, and also behold, she is with child by harlotry. And Judah said, bring her forth and let her be burned. And she was brought forth. But she sent to her father-in-law, saying, by the man whose these are, am I with child. And she said, discern, I pray thee, whose these are, the signet and bracelets and staff. And that refers back to the same phrase that was used about in 37:32 about them asking if the coat was Joseph's. And the commentator said that probably triggered Judah's mind back that, ooh. And also at the point too, back to when the 2 sons were killed, he probably at that point realized how sad his father had been about Joseph being killed. He has 2 sons gone now, but who knows? But this is the beginning of the change in Judah. So, and Judah acknowledged them and said, she hath been more righteous than I, because I gave her not Shelah, my son, and he knew her again no more. All right, this is one of the first times, too, that there's been a public acknowledgement of private sin and guilt. And the fact that Judah did it was amazing. And the fact that he said she has been more righteous, that would be seen, because there's people all over. They were following Tamar to see this burned. This is going to be public entertainment. And now he's in front of everybody, humbled himself and said, I'm the one that's guilty. Not blaming her at all. And that's when he called her righteous. That was the clue that it wasn't Tamar at all. It was all Judah's in doing, and that she was free of any guilt. And also, the way he talked here, the commentators indicate that he took her back into his house. And where it said he knew her no more, that she was back into his house, and they, But it also understand, maybe she wanted to have another husband, even though she had the kids. Maybe she wanted another husband. Maybe she's tired of Judah's deal, but who knows? It's different culture, different time. That's what a lot of the sermons and commentators said. You got to go back into their culture and not think in terms of our culture. So, okay. And it came to pass in the time of her travail that, behold, twins were in her womb. And it came to pass when she travailed that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, this came out first. And the scarlet thread seems to get, that's the blood and referring to Jesus. But this isn't the one that's the ancestor of Jesus. Back. I wanted to back to when Judah said, burn her, burn her. This is kind of parallel to David, and go to 2 Samuel. 1 Samuel 1 Kings, 1 and 2 Chronicles.
Which
Okay.
is it, second or
2 Samuel 12. After Ruth, we're gonna have to go Ruth. 2 Samuel 12, 5 to 7. Yeah, you won't, I did it first Samuel, first Samuel, second Samuel 12, 5-7. Okay, this is when David had taken Bathsheba and then had Uriah killed in battle because of his sin and Bathsheba being pregnant. First he tried to have Uriah, he called Uriah back from battle and said, sleep with your wife because you've been so hard battle. And he said, and Uriah was such a righteous man. How could I do that when all my compadres are back fighting? So when David was not successful, he kept doing it. So then finally he had Joab put him in the front of the battle and kill him. So then Nathan comes to David and tells him the story of the okay, lucky we're not with Tillis. Nathan comes to David and tells him the story of this rich man had lots and lots of flocks, and this poor man in the same village who had one little lamb who was like his child, that he ate with him, he slept with him, treated him like a child. And the rich man had a visitor come and to feast, and he took the poor man's lamb and slaughtered it for their feast. And how you could do that, think about how you had no rights in those days, just for that to happen. So this is David's response. And David's anger was greatly kindled against the man who took the little sheep. And he said to Nathan, as the Lord liveth, the man who hath done this thing shall surely die. And he shall restore the lamb fourfold because he did this thing and because he had no pity. And Nathan said to David, thou art the man. Woohoo! Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I anointed thee king over Israel, and I delivered thee out of the hand of Saul. And I gave thee thy master's house, thy master's wife, into thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and that of Judah. And if that had been too little, I would more have given unto thee such and such things. So, seems to be a problem with stuff like this in this lineage. And so, but David repents. David repents. And so does Judah. Judah, thank goodness, followed suit, and he also repents. And also, this is the Levirate law is also that you find in Ruth, that the Boaz and Ruth thing, because even though it was to make Naomi's whole, and her son that Ruth had married and died, and it was the closest, this was going way out. The closest male relative could redeem the land, but he also had to marry Ruth. And the closest relative said, I'm not marrying her, I'll give up the land. And that's when Boaz, and that was what Boaz was hoping, and Boaz stepped in and married her. And that was an example also of the Levirate marriage. And also, if you go to Ruth, first of all, 4:12, Ruth 4:12, and this is after Ruth she's having a child with Boaz, and they say, and all the people were at the gate and the elders, we are witnesses. The Lord make the woman which is come unto thine house like Rachel and like Leah. They're talking about Ruth, which two did build the house of Israel, and do thou worthily in Ephratah, and be famous in Bethlehem. And let thy house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore unto Judah, of the seed which the Lord shall give thee of this young woman. Because she's mentioned here, and also in the lineage, because we're going to look at the lineage too, we might not have time to go that far. But Tamar was not naughty girl. I mean, she was wrong in how she did it, but she was not looked down upon by the Lord. And then look on to 18 through, same place, 18 to 22. Now, this is the lineage. Now, these are the generations of Perez. Perez begot Hezron, and Hezron begot Ram, and Ram begot Abinadab, and Abinadab begot Nahshon. Nahshon begot Solomon. Solomon begot Boaz. Boaz begot Obed, and Obed begot Jesse, and Jesse begot David. So you're telling here, Perez is going from Tamar's Perez to David, but he also goes to Jesus. So turn to Matthew 1. Oh, also, the way you know that Judah had completely turned around, we won't read it because we haven't got time, is when Joseph had told the brothers on the second or third trip into Egypt, you have to bring Benjamin back, or you're not getting any food. So they went and they convinced Jacob, who was very reluctant to give up Benjamin. Once again, sin. You're showing how you favored Benjamin like you favored Joseph, and where'd that get you? So they took Benjamin, and then Joseph did that little thing with putting the gold cup in Benjamin's sack, and he sent the soldiers after him, and who took my cup? Nobody, and then they open up Benjamin's sack and it's gold cup. Soldiers take him back as a prisoner and slave. Judah returns, and Judah said, please, let me stand. Well, go to Genesis, because it's really good Genesis 44, 33 to 34. 44, 33 to 34. Well, thy servant, this is Judah talking, because he told Jacob that he would die before he let Benjamin not come back to him. For thy servant became surety for the lad unto my father, saying, if I bring him not unto thee, then I shall bear the blame to my father forever. Now therefore I pray thee, this is Judah talking to Joseph, let thy servant abide instead of the lad, a slave to my lord, and let the lad go up with his brethren. For how shall I go up to my father, and the lad is not with thee, lest perhaps I see the evil that shall come on my father. He is now willing to be a slave and suffer possible death to protect Benjamin. And that's when we know that Judah has become a very changed man. And this is also when Joseph tells him the brothers who he really is. But it's just, and a lot of the commentators pretty much say Tamar is the reason of why he changed like that. If Tamar had never come into his presence, she probably would have been Canaaniting for the rest of his life. And who knows what could have happened? God can do anything he wants. Another thing I found interesting before we go to the ancestry, why wasn't Shelah possibly the one that could carry on the lineage? He was still Judah's son. And the two older were gone, so until the two Perez and Zerah were born, he was still the next in line. So I don't understand why it was such a big deal. Something we're gonna have to ask God. Oh, and also, the thing about when the first one...
Judah was Jewish and Shelah was half Jewish.
Yeah,
So
but think, the first
But
one...
if you say that Tamar was possibly Jewish, that would be both Jewish.
Right, but most of them say she was Canaanite. So if had been...
That would be a third then, because she's Canaanite also.
Right.
So it'd still be less Jewish.
Right.
So he's more Jewish.
So yeah, but and these are, but also the thing about the way the twins came out, what else is like that in the Bible?
Esau.
Jacob and Esau. Esau came out first, but started out, and then Jacob got through him, the usurper. So just constant, corollaries, just things that happened before. So okay, Matthew 1. Because we've kind of gone over this before, but it's so interesting to me of this, the ancestry of Jesus. The genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac, and Isaac begot Jacob, and Jacob begot Judah and his brethren. And Judah begot Perez and Zerah of Tamar, and Perez begot Hezron, and Hezron begot Ram, Ram begot blah, blah, blah. 5. And Salem begot Boaz of Rahab, and Boaz begot Obed of Ruth, and Obed begot Jesse, Jesse begot David. And then the only other is women. Okay, so here we have Tamar, who was presuming, all these women they talk about are presumably Gentiles, except for Mary, because they talk about Jesus. Mary's mother. But presumably Tamar is not Israelite, she's a Gentile. Rahab was a harlot and definitely a Gentile because she was in the land of Canaan. Bathsheba, may have been an Israelite, but she's always considered, a lot of times considered Gentile because she's with Uriah the Hittite, and Hittite was Gentile. So you don't know if she could have been an Israelite. And then Ruth was a Moabitess, and then Mary. So, and first of all, almost never were women in genealogies. And it's interesting that Matthew said, okay, I'm putting them all in. You know, and some of the worst reputation women, Rahab the harlot, Tamar, who did the prostitute thing, Moabitess. I mean, Ruth didn't do anything wrong, but she was still a Moabite. And then Bathsheba, which I always think she didn't do anything wrong. I think she was like forced into the thing with the king calls you, what are you gonna say? No, thank you? I don't feel like it tonight, Davey. No, you go. And we're gonna have sex. Oh no, thank you.
Well, Ruth's mother-in-law prostituted her.
Right. Well, that's not true. She
That
told
is
her.
so true.
Well, I mean, when they criticized her for what? They didn't have sex though. He just uncovered.
She's kept him warm.
Yes. So, and then when they criticized Ruth for that, she did it by following, obeying Naomi. That's so wrong. That's so wrong. But anyway,
That's make a living.
So why was this chapter? Basically, they say, first of all, the commentators say to contrast the unrighteousness of Judah versus the righteousness of Joseph, how he fled from Potiphar's wife, how it would have been so much easier just to do what she wanted, but no, and then goes to prison for it. And that's the first thing, and also to show us that God wants all people. All these Gentile people, sinners. It looks to me, like Judah should have been off the charts because of what he did, but no, God redeemed him. And when Jacob blesses the son in Genesis 49, first he Reuben, you're out because of what you did with Bilhah, had slept with my wife, which I still think he didn't get enough play for being, trying to save Joseph. But who am I? I'm not God. And then the next two are Simon and Levi. They were because what they did to the Shechem, that he goes on. You should read it because how he dresses. And so Judah is number 4 because we go down the line. And he just praises Judah. So obviously Judah had a total turnaround because I'm sure he wasn't praising him when he found out he'd married the Canaanite woman. I think he was probably very upset. And so obviously he turned his, and maybe because of this incident about saying he died for Benjamin. So, because you're going to save my son I really love. Okay, you're okay. So, but anyway, it's just to show us God loves everybody. You can be redeemed no matter how bad you've been or what you've done. People, oh, God would never take me because of what I've done. We all know that's not true. You could be the worst. You could be Hitler. You could be Mao. You could be, Putin. If you turn around, I mean, it's hard to conceive, but if you turn around, that's what can happen. So, any questions or comments? I'm sorry, I went.
I thought it's something with Reuben, but I can't remember where we were. Genesis where?
38 is where we were, but 37 is where it said Reuben said, where's the boy? Where's the lad?
37.
Yes.
God looks at the heart. It's true. He said he was. The indication was that he was going to come back, but in verse 30, Reuben comes back to where the brothers are, and he says, "The boy is not there. As for me, what am I going to do now?"
It's about me. They're also about me.
It's about me.
They're all me. maybe that's, you know, knew the heart, you know, you wanted maybe just to please his father because of what he'd done. Maybe this was trying to cover up for what he'd done.
Maybe.
And you know, although he should have stood for Benjamin too, if that, see, who knows, you know, and who knows, and he could have changed like Judah. We just never know, you can't see into another's heart. You can only, you know, hope for the best and shouldn't judge even though, you know, people who allege to be Christians may be treating you or other people so badly. You know, maybe they're going through a bad patch and they're gonna turn around. You just never know. You just pray, which I know is hard, because when, you're supposed to forget it, move on. And every once in a while, people that have wronged me, I think I've forgotten it and moved on, and it pops up into my brain. Stop, okay. So, you know, we're all sinners and saved by grace.
Yeah.
And this is the wonderful week of Easter. Oh my God, I love Easter. So, anyway, any more questions or comments?
Good job.
So, Tamar was a good girl by all accounts in the Bible. Bad means of getting what she wanted, but you know, maybe she should have been like others and trusted in God, because things didn't seem to be happening. So, but I still don't countenance prostitution. So.